Hi guys, I'm Chris Traris, and I'm going to be going over social comparison and effort provision. So, what is social comparison? Social comparison is when you compare your own personal worth with respect to others. This could be from in the business world to school to, even materialistic things. It's just a general psychological effect. It relates to role within firms and in labor markets, and it also has to do with internal pay structure and employee morale, how other people's performance affects your performance. Labor demand, firm boundaries, wage changes, unemployment are all a part of this social comparison study. So, on to the experiment. Workers in Germany for a one-time promotional stunt are hired for a one-time promotional stunt. There are groups of workers with two people in each group, and then there are multiple phases in this experiment where the wage varies between the group or the individuals. So sometimes the group will have their wage cut, or sometimes an individual in the group will have their wage cut while the other person's remains the same. So more specifics on the experiment. There are two major cities in Germany. They hire 100 workers from varying gender and social background and distance. They have a set wage of 12 euros with a 30 euro penalty for missing a shift. So if they're sick or there's a medical situation, they have to pay 30 euros. And it just keeps and makes sure that people are, participating in the study. Their goal is to sell promotional cards for nightclubs and bars for 5 euros. It allows these people to skip the line and get in first. But there's an exchange where the person that is receiving the promotional cards must give them their contact information. Group leaders who were employees of the company before the study was conducted were told to not motivate or rebuke them. The people hired were not planned to be rehired or brought back, so there's no employee disgruntled between the people who were already in the system and the people who had been hired for the study. So the design of the experiment was one group of two has their wage cut by 3 euros. In another group, only one worker in the group has their wage cut by 3 euros. As you can see in this chart, there's the three groups, which we'll be referencing through the rest of this presentation. There's HH, which has their wage cut never. There's LL that has both workers in the group wage cut after post intervention. And then there's HL, which has one person in the group having their wage cut. In HL, there's two groups. There's HL cut and there's HL no cut. HL cut is the guy or the worker who goes down to 9 after intervention. HL no cut is the worker whose wage does not change after intervention. So what is the goal of this social comparison experiment? Social comparison may cause a reduction in pay inequality. It has inferences on pecuniary performance incentives, and then transaction costs and property rights may not be driving firms to their absolute boundaries. So what did the researchers really expect to get out of this experiment? In hypothesis 1, they say that workers in HL cut, which is the worker whose wage has been cut in comparison to their worker who has not had their wage cut, will have reduced performance more so than LL, which is the group that both people have their wage cut. In hypothesis 2, workers in HL no cut do not change their performance relative to HH. So in other words, the worker who is still getting their 12 euros compared to their coworker who is not is going to perform the same as the people who do not have their wage cut. In hypothesis 3, workers in LL decrease performance after wage cut relative to HH. So the people who both workers have their wage cut will decrease their performance level compared to both of the workers in HH who do not have their wage touched. They claim that in this situation at LL, these workers who have both received 3 less euros now will reestablish the equilibrium and their performance will come back over time. So the results. Results from hypothesis 1 show that unilateral wage cut caused strong decrease in performance compared to the general wage cut. From hypothesis 2, we see that unilateral wage cut has no effect on group members whose wage is not cut. So performing the same task but not earning more than coworkers is not associated with higher effort. From hypothesis 3, general wage cut causes an overall decrease in performance. So the workers who both wages were cut will have a decrease in performance. As you can see from this chart here, on the left, we have change in cards sold, so percentage of pre-intervention average. So in HH, they sold a decent amount of cards and their performance went a little bit up. In LL, where both people's wages were cut, their performance went down by around 4 to 5%. In HL no cut, this was actually the highest change in percentage. And then in HL cut, we have the highest change in decrease of percentage. So basically what we can take away from this is that, HL no cut, this worker actually for some reason performs better than HH, even though they're making the same amount. And they're saying that might have to do with how they're making more money than their coworker who's making even less. And it's pretty self-explanatory as to why HL cut is making less money than LL, because they're seeing that their coworker is making the full 12 euros and they've been cut down to 9, so they feel even more envious and more upset and more disgruntled with their situation, and it just leads to an overall poorer environment to work in. So what do you guys think? If you were part of this experiment, do you think that you would behave the same way? Do you think that you would react the same way as the guy in HL cut has reacted? Or would you have a more, temperamental reaction? What implications does this study have regards to the business world? How do corporate businesses, do they utilize this strategy? Is it very common? And what does it have to say about our business? Do you think that the results of this experiment would change in a much larger corporate setting? So this was conducted in a very, lower paying job with a relatively easy task. And how do you think this would change in a much larger corporate America situation, like, Ford or a big bank or anything like that? How would this study change? How would that situation affect this study? Let me know what you guys think, and thank you for watching. Also, a quick side note, for anyone using a Mac for the rest of these presentations, I think you can use Keynote as your presentation source and then export it as a video through Keynote.